Welcome to Offscreen. This week we're reading The Royal Court by Kelly Reichardt. The various tenants of an apartment complex in Florida speculate upon a string of suspicious deaths in the building.
Did you find out anything about her?
Well,
I mean, you already kind of knew
yeah,
about.
yeah. So she is one of I don't know. I'm a big fan of her as a filmmaker. She's probably best known for a string of movies that she made starting in like the mid 2000s with Old Joy, followed by Wendy and Lucy, Meek's Cutoff.
Meek's Cutoff I've heard of.
Yeah, and Night Moves.
So you've seen all these?
I haven't seen Night Moves, but I've seen the others.
Okay.
And she has one in theaters right now called Certain Women, starring Laura Dern, Kristen Stewart, Michelle Williams, and others.
Yeah. Now this script is from '98, so that's before all of
This
those.
is before all of that, yeah. And I think she had maybe just made one feature by that point in 1998 called River of Grass, which I've also seen.
Oh.
And that one also takes place, if I recall correctly, in Florida.
Is she directing all of these herself?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Wendy and Lucy and Old Joy both take place in the Pacific Northwest, and are like very much characterized by that environment.
Huh. Is she from Florida, or is she from the Pacific Northwest, or both?
I'm not sure where she is from originally, but I know she resides at least part-time in the Pacific Northwest now. She also taught filmmaking at Bard College.
Oh, okay.
I think Bard College. Anyways, her movies are usually pretty small in scale and really character and theme driven. And they get great performances from Michelle Williams.
I primarily know Michelle Williams from Blue Valentine, which maybe other people as well. Which she was also good in that. Yeah. A really depressing movie. But she was good.
Yep. Anyways, so yeah, this was written in 1998. I think it was to be her follow-up to River of Grass, but as she said in one interview, it's not exactly the most sellable script.
I might agree. Not to say it's bad, but...
No.
Yeah.
Between its ensemble cast and its subject matter, I guess.
Well,
but
yeah, we'll talk about that.
We can get into it. You want to...
Yeah. Should we talk genre-wise? I mean, you kind of said already what her MO is. I would say this is like an ensemble drama.
Yeah.
Kind of slice of life.
Thing. I think.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll read the synopsis. On a quiet summer evening in Hollywood, Florida, 3 gunshots are heard from one of the apartments in a small complex called the Royal Court. It appears that Fred Monroe committed suicide right in front of his wife, Jean. Until her apartment has been cleaned, her neighbor Jack Lurvy offers to let her stay with him. He's actually a police detective himself, though currently on vacation, as he continues to remind Detective Clark. Clark is on the case, and when more people begin turning up dead at the Royal Court, he suspects Jean. He warns Lurvy to kick her out of his place, but it's too late. They've already taken a liking to each other. Clark looks up Jean's record and learns that she's been through 2 husbands before Fred, one of them dead, one missing. Confronted with this information, Lurvy finally turns on Jean, demanding to know the truth. Jean refuses to admit that it was anything more than a streak of bad luck, and just as Lurvy drives her away, a crucial piece of evidence is discovered linking the murders to a 13-year-old girl in the complex named Billy Steeves. Often left alone by her parents, she was inspired by the excitement surrounding Fred's suicide. Dreading his mistake, Lurvy goes on a bender, which ends, as does the screenplay, with him crashing his car into the pool at the heart of the Royal Court.
Cool. Wait, a question. Doesn't he go on the bender before he finds out?
Before Steve? I guess so. He doesn't know. I don't think even in the end he still isn't for sure. Like, I don't know if anyone told him.
Yeah, I think
he just kind of like crashes.
I think the other cop told him.
Oh, did it? Okay.
Not Clark, but Shirley.
But yeah, his bender is more of the result of feeling bad about driving away.
Yeah, and he's kind of a recovering alcoholic, so he shouldn't be.
Right.
Shouldn't be hitting the bottle.
No, certainly not. He kind of started when Jean started living with him.
Yeah.
Which both of them are kind of shut-ins. I would say Jean and Lurvy.
Yeah.
They make a point of saying that, like, they don't get out much of the apartment.
And attributing that to I've been out there. I've seen everything out there. It's not good.
Right.
So
They're
why should I
over
go
it.
outside? Yeah.
Yeah. And that's just, I think, important to the whole script, that the script itself is kind of that way. It's all pretty much entirely shot within this apartment complex.
Mm-hmm.
There are very select few moments that we see outside of it. But yeah, for the most part, it's very insular.
Right. Which you would think would be good in terms of it being more producible.
Yeah.
But I guess, yeah, it didn't happen.
Yeah. And also, a point I wanted to make, aside from the summary, there are several other stories we sort of track. One is like these kids that live in the building. Oh, they're like teenagers, and they're kind of like taking all of their neighbors' furniture and stuff and putting it into their apartment because the neighbor, is kind of temporarily moving out with all the drama surrounding the murders. She's like gonna peace out for a while.
Right.
So these kids take all of her stuff and put it in their apartment, which is not very cool. And she was, I guess, like the girl, Sylvia, the teenager, was supposed to be watching the lady's plants for her.
Right.
That's why she had the key, and so she just starts taking everything else, not just the plants.
Yeah, they borrow the TV, and then it doesn't stop there.
Right. And then we see just little snippets of other people in the apartment building.
Yeah.
It all kind of overlaps.
Which gives it a real, like you said, slice of life feel. But here, it's very de-dramatized.
Yeah.
And it's more just people wandering
And even,
about.
yeah, I mean, even with all the deaths going on, it's surprisingly low-key.
Yeah.
Like, nobody seems completely horrified or even very suspicious about it. It's weird. No one's, like, super concerned, except the police, obviously.
But really, it's just one police officer who's
Right.
super concerned.
Clark.
And that's Clark, the
Yeah.
young, still aspirational one who wants to
Yeah.
make captain by the time he's 30 and resents Lurvy for beating him to detective by 5 months.
Right.
And I think it's important to say that Lurvy was like once a fast rising star in the police department.
Right.
He was the youngest person ever to make detective, and should have been a shoo-in for captain, but removed himself from the race.
Right.
Um,
Which baffles Clark.
baffles Clark.
But I think we could say it's, well, I wonder what you think. I mean, it seems to me he just didn't have that ambition. He didn't care. I mean, it's not that he is not good for the job. I mean, he would probably be, but I think he just likes what he does as a detective.
I think he likes what he does, and I think but he also makes a point of saying that someone asked him, isn't being a cop a 24/7 job? And he's like, for some people, but for me, it's just a job.
Yeah, right.
He's kind of resigned. And throughout the screenplay, there's this real sense of like just bureaucratic like nightmare, like just red tape holding everything up.
There's a great sequence where one of the people who they find dead in the building is like some guy. I don't think he even lives there. He was just working up in the trees.
He's a gardener,
in
I
the
think.
Yeah, okay, in the courtyard, and yeah, they find him dead in the tree. And first it takes the lady who lives next door, like she smells something in the tree. So she tells the guy that works there. They call, I think, animal control first or something like.
Well, no, first
or the Humane
she calls like the property manager. The
Right.
property manager reluctantly goes over there to
Right.
check it out.
And then they call the
Animal
Humane
control,
Society. or
yeah,
something.
Humane Society.
And then they're like, no, this is a person. You need to call the police.
Yeah.
And then even the police are like, well, we don't want to go up there. And they like call the fire department, I think,
the
for
police
a ladder.
No, they call the power company,
Okay.
and the power company tells them that they're not authorized to that they're not going to go retrieve this body, 1, and 2, they're not
Yeah.
authorized to allow anyone to use their equipment to go up into the tree
Right.
to
For
remove the
liability
body.
reasons.
Yeah. So
Anyway, yeah, all that goes to say, you're right. There's a lot of nonsense about bureaucracy and things going on, which is kind of funny.
it was kind of funny, but it also creates this sense of kind of helplessness, or like nothing is ever going to get done right. It's just moving slowly, and it happens whether or not you do anything about it.
Yeah.
Or can do anything about it.
But anyway, we've spent a long time sort of just detailing the plot.
Yeah.
But what did you think overall? What was your impression?
I liked it overall. Does
this live up to your sort of expectations of what Kelly Reichardt's work is
well,
like?
it's different, I think, than her 2000s work. I think this is more in line with her first movie, River of Grass,
How's that?
that was also set in Florida, and it was, if I recall, it's been a really long time since I've seen it, but it's kind of like a lovers on the run type of,
Okay.
like they commit a crime and then they flee the police,
Okay.
like that sort of thing. Just like a really, really inept criminals, I guess. And this is that, but with the ineptitude spread.
Yeah. Sort of on a bigger scale, but
Yeah,
still not really. It's still pretty contained.
Yeah, I guess they're just across more people.
Yeah.
It's either ineptitude or indifference
Yeah.
here, which is interesting. What did you think? Your impressions?
I liked it. It was a little bit long, and it
Sure,
definitely it takes its time, not only in like just the plot. Like not a lot happens, especially like even in the beginning. There's the initial, suicide of Jean's husband, but then for a long time, not much more happens. So it's very slow. The pace is really slow.
Yeah.
But that's okay. It kind of works. I'm okay with that. And it really luxuriates in the details it's describing in a lot of these places, which was part of what drew me into it, though, too. These places feel really lived in and really rich with detail. They talk a lot about just like the items that are sitting around in these people's apartments. Like there will be like a puzzle that someone's working on. There are books on the shelves, photos. It describes a lot of these things.
You get a real sense, and this is something that I really appreciate in films, and I guess in screenplays. You get a real sense of the lives lived beyond the pages of the screenplay.
Yes.
Or just the details of the plot.
And I feel like Reichardt, if you asked her to, she could draw you a map of this complex and tell you exactly where each person lives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And probably elaborate a lot on the relationships between the characters.
Yeah.
Even minor ones that don't necessarily interact too much together.
Yeah.
I liked how, despite Lurvy's he was on vacation, so he didn't really want to be bothered to do any police work. It was still clear that he was really competent at his job, like how he when the bank robber or the hotel burglar, Hank Mobley.
Right. There's like an ex-con that lives in the building.
Yeah, he's a guy that
Lurvy
caught him like 8 years prior, and he comes back, and he's obviously one of Clark's first suspects.
Right.
And I think Lurvy really concisely assesses why he's probably not the guy.
What's that?
Like he says, he says this to someone else, not to Clark, but he says, back then Hank Mobley didn't know I was living over him any more than I knew he was living under me. And I don't think he gave it too much thought when he moved back here. I think he moved back here for a much simpler reason, for the same reason I keep hanging around.
I had that same line written down. I was going to ask you about it. I wasn't sure what he meant when he said that Hank moved back. Like after Hank got out of prison, he moved back into the same apartment for the same reason that Lurvy has stayed in the same building.
Yeah.
But I don't know what that reason is. Is it complacency? Is it just
I think it's
passivity?
Just complacency and just you could go somewhere else, but what's the point, I guess.
Yeah. If you've already got a place, might as well just stay there.
Yeah, you're here.
Yeah, that was interesting, and I do.
It's real. That's like the real overriding feeling to me of this screenplay is these people are just living their life in this place, and time is just passing, and they're not really doing anything, much less anything important.
They're just kind of staying there by default.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And then the injection of some excitement comes in the form of these murders for.
Right.
I don't think it's a coincidence that that she chose to set it in Hollywood, Florida. I think the irony of that.
Because it connotes excitement.
Exactly.
Hollywood.
Also, the apartment complex is called the Royal Court.
Right.
There's absolutely nothing royal about it.
I was going to ask you about that, too, because I thought that was interesting. I had to, you have to ask yourself when you read that, what is the writer trying to say by calling this place the Royal Court? And yeah, obviously it's really not an affluent neighborhood at all. But more than that, also, Jean has a dog named Princess. Mm-hmm. And yeah, like you were saying, there's a sense of sort of ennui about everyone,
totally.
Which I think usually is...
But not an ennui that they are perceptive of,
right,
I don't think.
Right, and that's usually associated with well-off people who have nothing better to do because they could just sit around all day. But these people, clearly, they have better things they could be doing with their lives, but they're not. So it's
But
interesting.
to them, what is there? It's not like they recognize something better out there and are like afraid to go get it or unable to. There's just nothing. I feel like none of them see anything else out there worth going for.
Yeah, but there were several lines like that. That was one of the things I didn't like about this, where it felt, and maybe it's partly because it's all in the same location,
Hmm.
but it felt like a play at times, and
Oh, sure.
some of the lines felt a little more like stage play, over dramatic to me.
Hmm.
Like, there's this other neighbor of theirs who's constantly playing this same song over and over again.
Hmm.
I think it's trying to imbue it with that sense of like no like lack of progress or like going in circles sort of
Right.
repetition. And so yeah, this line is when Jean is complaining about him playing that song all the time, and she says, "Do you know what a song like that can do to me? A song like that makes me feel like I might just get up off this floor, go out that door, and keep going." And Lurvy's like, "Just go, huh?" And it's just, I don't know, that felt like a
Yeah,
little much.
but I think the irony of it, the fact that she's going nowhere,
Yeah.
is I think that makes it work for me.
Okay.
And also, I don't know. I think you could have an overly dramatic line like that every now and again if it's not too many of them.
I think there were too many of them.
Like if it draws you into the thematic, like a thematic way of thinking about the movie, then maybe. I don't know. But yeah, I guess.
Even that line that you were talking about earlier, Jack, don't you think I've been out there? I've been out there plenty of times, seen everything, been to all the places, all the malls, all the bars. And she says, there's nothing out there that I haven't already seen, and nothing I've already seen that I care to see again.
Right.
I don't know. That seemed like that's not something I can imagine anyone actually talking like that.
But how? Well, I don't know. It doesn't sound unnatural.
I guess. I don't know.
Right, with
Sometimes
some subtext.
sometimes the actor in my head isn't a very good actor, and it doesn't deliver the lines very well.
Yeah.
So maybe that's on me.
I don't know. I think it could work.
So what else did you like about this?
Like you said, I think just the attention to small details made it feel really alive, even though there wasn't really a strong dramatic thrust to it.
Yeah.
Just these deaths kept piling up and kept piling up, but really all the secondary characters didn't care,
Yeah.
and it didn't impact their lives in any way. Which I don't know if that is something that would actually happen, but it worked. It worked in like a thematic sense of the movie.
Yeah. It's almost like conspicuous how much it doesn't affect them, which I think is the point, and that's
Totally,
good.
yeah.
If it felt just like bad writing, because I could see that. I could see it where it just comes off as like an oversight on the writer's part, that these other people just have their own stuff going on and it doesn't seem to interconnect at all.
Uh-huh.
But it doesn't. It feels like it's on
But
purpose.
it's so
and
intentionally disconnected.
She's
and
making a point of showing us that these people just don't care. They're just really passive people, and
yeah, and
yeah.
It's like the things that like Sylvia and her friends or whatever are doing are just so unimportant and normal that like that contrast is even more stark.
Yeah, and it was funny. I was thinking about this because I was talking to a friend of mine recently about this particular set of movies that I like,
Mm-hmm.
and I was trying to figure out like if there's a particular genre or how to group them. I was thinking of like High Fidelity,
Mm-hmm.
Clerks,
Mm-hmm.
and something else I can't remember now, but my friend was like, "Oh, those are all hangout movies."
Oh yeah.
And I was like, what do you mean? And I don't think I think my friend just made this term up, but yeah, he's like, well, it's just a bunch of people hanging out the whole time. And that's what this kind of is. And I realized, because the thing that tipped me off about it, that I think is the quintessential hangout movie marker that you can tell, is if someone is sitting on something that's not a chair. Okay. Let's follow me here. So Clerks.
Yeah.
They're constantly like sitting on the floor. They're sitting on like the freezer thing that has like the ice cream bars in it, and they're sitting on like the counter. High Fidelity, it's also in a shop, and they're just like sitting on top of the like record shelves all the time, and like I think that's the key to a hangout movie, and that happened here. There were some of those like teenage kids were doing their laundry, and one of them was sitting on the laundry machine, and then it clicked for me. I was like, it's a hangout movie.
Interesting. I like that because it is that vibe.
And yeah, and it also...
It's not, like, in the it's not really a hangout movie in the same way that Clerks or High Fidelity are, I don't think.
This one has, I think, higher aspirations a little bit.
Yeah. Or different ones, I guess.
More weighty thematically.
Yeah.
Yeah. But also, yeah, those teenage kids really, even though, yeah, there's like almost nothing that happens with them or that affects the story at large, it gave it such a nice like flavor to me because it's a cool, I can just imagine it. It would look really cool. Them taking all this like old ladies furniture into their house and just like throwing it around carelessly and lounging on it, and like at one point they're like sleeping on the floor watching cartoons on the TV. It's like that's just a place I want to go. That's just like a nice scene to live in.
It's like you could feel yourself wanting to escape there for a little bit, but you probably wouldn't want to be stuck there.
Which is the problem, because it seems like it would be like the place you would get stuck in. It's like quicksand.
Yeah, and also the fact that he crashes his car in the pool. Like, what better symbol of stuckness than that is there?
And it feels very noirish, too.
It does.
This whole thing does.
Yeah.
A lot of hard-boiled kind of dialogue. And
yeah, it's not like a California neo-noir, obviously, but it's a Florida equivalent,
it's in Hollywood.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So it does definitely have that sense.
Also, there was a scene that reminded me of The Big Lebowski, which is sort of a neo-noir, like a parody of a noir almost. The guy the ex-con that lives in the building, of course, Clark, the detective, immediately suspects that he was behind these murders. So they interrogate him sort of unofficially, like sort of off the books, and he drags Lurvy along with him, even though Lurvy is not on duty. He kind of just wants to rile up the guy since he still knows that Lurvy was the one that put him away. But it's such a funny scene to me, and it reminds me of The Big Lebowski when they go to that kid Larry Sellers' house because they think he stole their money. And it's just this kid that's in like middle school or high school or something, and the kid just sits there the whole scene, never says a thing, and Walter, played by John Goodman, is like getting so frazzled trying to grill this kid and getting nowhere.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing that pretty much happens here. The guy, Hank, really doesn't... I don't think he has a line in the entire scene. It's just Clark getting all worked up because he thinks he's the guy, and Lurvy's not having it. Lurvy's like, no, you're barking up the wrong tree.
They make a point of saying, one, that, Hank doesn't say anything. He doesn't care that they're there. And they make a point of saying that he's mostly concerned with his dinner getting cold.
Right, yeah.
Lurvy doesn't want to be there. The other police officer, Mulligan's looking through a pornographic magazine in the background.
Okay.
So,
well, should we get to the bad things, if anything? I mean, it seems
sure.
like you're pretty positive, but
I'm pretty positive, but yeah.
I've got a few things that I would knock it for. The relationship between Lurvy and Jean, I don't buy it fully. It progresses really fast, and this all takes place over the course of like a week. And in that week, they go from meeting for the first time to being like really, they're adoring each other and like seem to be almost really fully in love, and then they have a falling out, and it all happens very quickly. And I don't see the development there. I don't see it like really.
But I feel like that's like kind of the point. Like, there really isn't much development. There isn't development at all. She just moves in with him, basically. He invites her to stay with him, and then she stays with him. And then he accuses her of
possibly killing her husband.
Being responsible for these crimes, and then she bounces.
Yeah.
And then that's that.
I don't know. I felt like...
I don't think it makes sense on a character level, but I think it works on a kind of like a thematic level.
Well, that's... Yeah, okay, and that I think is more of what I was going to get at. The thing I didn't like about this. The characters feel real, and the setting feels really lived in, like we said, but I think if you're gonna do a slice of life story like this, I want the characters to be a little more interesting. Like, the teenagers didn't really have much going on. It was interesting what they were doing was interesting, but there wasn't a lot of meaning.
But that's the point, isn't it? Like,
that's the problem, I think, is like, I think you're just setting yourself a really difficult challenge if you're trying to write a movie about a place that is explicitly just boring and stale. It's almost impossible.
It really is just people wandering in and out.
Yeah.
And they have their lives, and their lives are just going on, regardless of what's happening around them. and they're indifferent to what's happening around them, really.
Yeah, but also some of those teenagers were indistinguishable to me pretty much.
They were, and I actually had to go back and because there is an introduction with the list of characters,
right? Which also is kind of like a play. They list out the entire cast.
Though I feel like older screenplays do that a lot more often.
Oh, do they? Okay.
Yeah, well, just like some of the older ones we've read.
Yeah.
Did that.
Yeah.
This could work really well as a play.
Oh, totally. Yeah, I agree. So should we?
Do you want to jump to verdicts? Yeah.
Well, first, should we get some business out of the way? The usual.
First, there is a website that we have, OSPodcast.com, an email address, info@OSPodcast.com. We're on iTunes, which is still, I think, our main.
I assume that's how most people are listening. I don't know.
So, yeah. So if you could subscribe to us there, that's greatly, greatly appreciated. Leave us a review, write a comment, give us a rating, that sort of thing. Facebook.com/OSPodcast. Twitter, we're at OSPodcast. And we have YouTube, and more people are listening to us on YouTube, which is cool. So if you could subscribe to us there, we're 53% of the way to 100 subscribers.
Which, if we get 100 subscribers, as Steven pointed out to me, I didn't know, but then we can have just youtube.com/OSPodcast.
I'm pretty sure it's going to be so disappointing if I read it wrong or something.
Yeah.
But I think that's it.
But right now we just have some random assortment of numbers and symbols for our YouTube channel.
Yeah. So that's cool. I try and put them up as quick as I can. Sometimes I lag because I'm a bad person, but
all right.
We're still on Stitcher. So verdict?
Okay. Well, I'm going to insist that you go first.
Okay. Well, I'm going to recommend the writer, having been familiar with most of her other work.
Okay.
And I feel like this isn't her strongest screenplay, but I'm still inclined to give it a mild recommend. I'm teetering between consider and recommend. I don't know.
Okay.
Because I think this plays really well. I think she would make this a really good movie because she handles dramatizing things that aren't dramatic. I
do think
really well.
Yeah, I think you have to maybe give her a little bit of leeway, knowing she's also going to direct this. Some of those lines I was making fun of that sounded over dramatic, that is more of a liability if you're writing it and then putting it in someone else's hands, I think. But if you write it knowing that you're going to direct it, then I think you probably, or hopefully you know what you're doing enough that I think you can
manage the tone and manage the context. And I think those didn't bother me as much as they bothered you. Yeah. I think when Jean is blackout, I don't know. I believe that's something someone would say after they've been drinking.
Okay.
And I believe it's something that character would say too.
Okay.
But I don't know. What do you think?
I was kind of pissed off at the little kid being the one behind it at the end.
Yeah.
I didn't really buy that. But I think
it's just there's no way we could have discovered that. But that's almost kind of the point.
Right. I'm more okay with that here. I know I've complained about that in the past, about twists that you have no way of predicting. That's really dumb usually, but here I think it does actually make a little bit of sense.
You can predict it in the sense that it is the logical thematic outcome.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
it's not If you accept the worldview presented, then sure, why not? Why isn't she the one?
Yeah. Or I also like this. This is a conspiracy theory on my part, or sort of a alternate explanation. Is that, like we said, Lurvy actually goes on his drunken bender before he learns about this kid. Mm-hmm. It's really, he does it because he's sad about driving away Jean for accusing her of being the killer. So my theory is he got really drunk, and everything that happened in the movie after that is all part of his drunken stupor, and he's just trying to divert blame from her. Maybe she really is the killer, but in his drunken hallucinations, he imagined that it was this random kid in the apartment building that did it. That's my alternate theory.
It seems unmotivated by what came before it, but I can see it.
Anyway, that was a bit of a hang up for me as well. But I think I'm still inclined to consider the script.
Uh-huh.
And I would recommend the writer too, even though I haven't really seen any of her other work. This is really strong writing to me, and I feel like, to me, it's
so rich with detail.
It's a good, potentially great writer who just hasn't found sort of her footing yet, or her particular genre or style yet. Mm-hmm. Like, I can tell there's really good writing skills here, but this is maybe not exactly the kind of story that best suits her writing.
Sure, I can see that.
Yeah. Cool.
Cool. So next week,
What are we
we
reading
decide
next
later.
week? Yeah, that's
Sorry.
fine.